In this book may be found all of the stimuli necessary to attune any normal mind to the vibrations which will attract the object of one's desires. The most practical of all methods for controlling the mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose. Unless you completely remove all of the negativity, the fear, the doubt, the worry, the indecision, unless you can successfully do that, there's just going to be a storm inside of you. Everything that has ever existed was simply an idea in somebody's mind, and then it got formed into reality through basically everything that he outlines in this book. Just working hard does not bring you the wealth or the income that you're looking for, and just having a good imagination doesn't either. You need to brainwash yourself into having the mindset that is required to obtain the things that you want in this lifetime. Today, I am going to summarize the best entrepreneurial, self-employed, philosophical business book that has ever been written. It is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It was first published in 1937, which was right around the time the Great Depression was ending. And, well, I may be wrong on that. Whenever the Great Depression ended, he did touch on the Great Depression quite a bit in this book, and I find that it's extremely valuable today, given all the difficulties that we are facing as a species year over year. Yeah, I'm just going to dive right in, and I'm going to start from the beginning. So I've kind of dog-tailed important sections that I want to touch on, and I'm going to give just a brief overview of every single chapter as well. Now, when I first read this book, I was close to the beginning of my business. I was just getting going, and this actually became the foundation for everything that I have done up to this point. If you watched another video that I put up, it's a 48-minute long video, same sort of format where I'm breaking down everything that I did start to this point to get my business to a sustainable level. This was actually the book that was the framework for building all of that. So it's a must read if you are a freelancing videographer or photographer and you want sort of a step-by-step process to brainwash yourself into being successful with what you do. So, diving right in, we have chapter 1. Introduction. So, right from the beginning of this book, it just has phenomenal insights that you can really take and inject into your mind to build your business. Truly, thoughts are things, and powerful things at that, when they are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for their translation into riches or other material objects. So right off the hop, he's giving away sort of the entire point of this book, which is that your thoughts become your reality. So whatever you think about, you can create. Because everything that has ever existed was simply an idea in somebody's mind, and then it got formed into reality through basically everything that he outlines in this book. And he does hint in the introduction that there is sort of a secret thing that he will repeat throughout the entire book and all the chapters, and that is that one thing. So it's kind of a wink if you've read it a couple times. I've read this book 4 times, which is why I'm doing this in the first place. I'm just about finished it. I'm right in the last chapter here. So I kind of got this idea to actually go through it in detail. Another quote from the introduction chapter is, psychologists have correctly said that when one is truly ready for a thing, it puts in its appearance. Barnes was ready for a business association with Edison. Moreover, he was determined to remain ready until he got that which he was seeking. So what he's referring to there is this story where this man named Barnes decided that he wanted to work with Edison, the inventor. And he didn't want to work with any inventor. He wanted specifically to work with Edison, and he approached him, and he was persistent in that. And then he eventually did work with him and became extremely successful in working with Thomas Edison. But the only reason he was successful is because he made up his mind, he thought about it obsessively, and then he went after it, which is kind of the entire premise of this whole book. So chapter 2 is called Desire. Now, in this chapter, he really goes into detail on a specific step-by-step process that you can take to transmute your thoughts and ideas into riches. And this isn't specifically financial gain. I mean, finance isn't important, and it is the system that our entire planet runs on. So if you're self-employed and you're running a business that does video and photo, then it is wise to prioritize being profitable, or you'll have to keep working a job. So in this step-by-step process, he touches on 6 things that you need to do throughout this entire process. So first, fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. It is not sufficient merely to say, I want plenty of money. Be definite as to the amount. There is a psychological reason for definiteness, which will be described in a later chapter. Second, you have to determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money you desire. There is no such reality as something for nothing. Third, establish a definite date which you intend to possess the money you desire. Fourth, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you are ready or not, to put this plan into action. Fifth, write out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire. Name the limit for its acquisition. State what you intend to give in return for the money, and describe clearly a plan that you are going to follow to accumulate it. Sixth, you're going to read this written statement aloud twice daily, once just before bed and once when you get up in the morning. As you read, you must see and feel and believe that you're already in possession of this money. So this doesn't have to be all taken extremely to heart. You don't literally have to read this out every single night and every single morning, but it does sort of become a guide for the goal that you have set for yourself. So you've decided that you want X amount of dollars, and you've decided when you want that by. So I mean, a really good way of doing that is deciding, I want to earn, say you're just starting, say I want to earn $100,000 this year with my videography business. Or maybe you're further along, I want to earn $500,000 this year with my videography business. And that's good. So that's your end date. That's, December 31st of whatever year you're in. Once you've set that number in your head, it's important to believe that you've already done it, because you can. There's this great quote in a movie with Anthony Hopkins called The Edge, and the quote is, what one man can do, another can do. Meaning, there's a lot of people who are earning what you want to be earning, and if you are patient and persistent and you decide that that's what you want to do, then you can do that very easily, actually. And this is sort of the first step on that journey. So another thing that he touches on in this chapter, in chapter 2 here about desire, is his son is born without ears. Like, he literally doesn't have ears on the side of his head, and furthermore, he doesn't even have like the equipment to hear anything. Like, even if he did have ears, there's nothing going into his brain cavity that would allow him to hear ever. Clearly, this man, Napoleon Hill, is extremely optimistic, and he uses the power of his mind. And so the story goes, basically, his kid does learn how to hear. It starts with a music device that they had at the time in his house, and the kid would bite down on the side of this music device, and it'd be equivalent of a speaker of today. And he could see that the kid could like hear the music. The vibration was resonating through his body, I guess, in the same way that I think it was Beethoven, who was deaf, actually was able to still compose music. And then later on in his life, this kid ended up, over years and years of struggle and challenges, he ended up finding this type of hearing aid that allowed him to be able to hear. And once he really started using it and talking about it, he realized that his life purpose was to sell these things and to help other people who had the same affliction as him in their lives. So he found purpose. Napoleon Hill's son found purpose through something that would really work against you if you weren't taught the right mindset to have. And that is the entire premise of this book, is the fact that you need to brainwash yourself into having the mindset that is required to obtain the things that you want in this lifetime. So chapter 3 is faith, visualization, and the belief in attainment of desire. Repetition of affirmation of orders to your subconscious mind is the only known method of voluntary development of the emotion of faith. The subconscious mind will transmute into its physical equivalent by the most direct and practical media available any order which is given to it in a state of belief or faith that the order will be carried out. So I'm sure I shouldn't assume that, but maybe you've seen the movie The Secret, or you've heard about it. This is what he's touching on here. He is talking about having blind faith, believing so deeply that you already have something that it actually does come to pass. In my own business, and as I mentioned, I was reading this book as I was building. This part was extremely important because what I was doing was rather new, actually, in the area that I was doing it in my hometown. And it was during COVID, and there was this just massive boom of a bunch of people in my area starting to do video for a business. And I had to really make it up as I went. And I was following my gut and following my heart the entire time. And now here I am, 5 or so years later, and the business is still here because of that time I put in visualizing and deciding what it is that I wanted to do in that business. So the 4th chapter is autosuggestion. Autosuggestion is a term which applies to all suggestions and all self-administered stimuli which reach one's mind through the five senses. Stated in another way, autosuggestion is self-suggestion. Now, in this chapter, he expands on that initial instruction for deciding what you want and writing out the plan to attain it. So he expands on it, and he goes a little bit more in depth specifically. The idea basically is to really narrow down an exact thing that you want and put aside time to reflect on it and think about it and allow yourself to desire it. And also to put yourself in environments so all of your senses are stimulated in a way that aid you in obtaining that thing. If you're in an environment that isn't conducive to the things that you actually want, then you're going to have a really hard time attracting the things that you do want into your life, because all of your senses, your smell, your sight, your hearing, you're taking all of that in. And the big idea with this book is that it's using your subconscious mind to create opportunities for you, for your conscious mind to pick up on and then act on. You're consciously thinking, you're feeding it into your subconscious. Your subconscious is processing what you're telling it that you want, and then your conscious mind is going to pick up those signals back from the subconscious and see like, oh, that's a person that needs a video. I'm going to go and make that video because that is going to help me get closer to my $100,000 goal that I'm striving towards in my first year of a video business. Chapter 5 is specialized knowledge. There are two kinds of knowledge. One is general and the other is specialized. General knowledge, no matter how great in quantity or variety it may be, is of little use in the accumulation of money. The faculties of the great universities possess in the aggregate the faculties of the great universities possess in the aggregate practically every form of general knowledge known to civilization. Most of the professors have but little or no money. They specialize on teaching knowledge, but they do not specialize on the organization or use of the knowledge. Knowledge will not attract money unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action to the definite end of accumulation of money. So, you can't just read a bunch of books or watch a bunch of YouTube videos or movies or scroll through Instagram or take courses or any form of consumption. You can't just do that and expect these things to come to you. You need to learn, right? Acquire the general knowledge, and then you need to take action. And through taking action, you're going to build specialized knowledge. And what that is going to do is it's going to teach you how to improve and how to repeat the things that are working well. There's going to be things that don't work well and things that do work well. And once you've gone through that whole process, then you repeat it again, right? So it's learn, action, and then there's like an output, right? So your input is learning, and then you're taking action, and then the output, you're going to be able to see the cause and effect from doing that. And then the idea is to learn more, dive back in, try again, probably make a bunch of mistakes, learn again, etc. And through doing that, you're going to become a specialist in whatever actions you are taking in the real world. Chapter 6 is imagination. Okay, which you're a creative person, you're a photographer, you're a videographer, a filmmaker, you have a good imagination. So this is where this book becomes so frickin' potent, because this is easy for you. You just have to be disciplined with it, and you have to understand that by using your imagination to your advantage, other than just selling it, you can sculpt the life that you want. I mean, I'm sure if you are a creative person, you were probably something like me. I daydreamed a lot when I was a kid, and when I daydream today, it's about where I'm going to be in the next 2 or 3 years. It's about the concepts of making these videos and what these videos mean to me and what they mean to somebody watching. I'm using my imagination to play things out in my head by allowing myself that in-between time between hustling and working. I'm sitting, I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking specifically, not in a worrisome way, but in a creative way. And I'm allowing my imagination to work for me. Ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes. Ideas are products of the imagination. So everything that has ever happened, everything that has ever been invented, started as an idea. But again, you can't just sit and think about ideas and then not take that action that you need to take in order for it to actually happen. I wouldn't say this book is 100% a manifestation book or anything like that, but there are little kind of tidbits in it. It's a very scientific approach to acquiring the things that you want, because it certainly takes hard work as well, but you also can't just bust ass and work hard and expect to receive the income that you're looking for. If that were true, then road workers and house framers would be the richest people on the planet, because they work extremely hard. Maybe if they started their own business, then they could certainly be wealthy. But just working hard does not bring you the wealth or the income that you're looking for, and just having a good imagination doesn't either. It is a nice, even blend of both of those things, which segues nicely into chapter 7, which is organized planning. Henry Ford accumulated a fortune, not because of his superior mind, but because he adopted and followed a plan which proved to be sound. 1,000 men could be pointed out, each with a better education than Ford's, yet each of whom lives in poverty, because he does not possess the right plan for the accumulation of money. There's a famous story about Ford where I believe he was being questioned by some committee. It was sort of like a court case, but like he wasn't in trouble or anything. It wasn't anything legal, but for some reason, he was being questioned. And the interrogator was asking him a question about something super dumb, like how many troops tried to invade America from Britain, like something like that on this specific date. And he said, I don't know. And then they asked another series of questions that mean nothing. And his response through agitation became, if anything comes to my attention that I need to understand, I have a series of buttons under my desk, and there are a plethora of people who will come to my office and tell me what the answer is. Basically, Ford was someone, and much like any other business owner, entrepreneur who made anything sizable, they were able to follow a plan. And part of his plan was employing people who knew more than him, who were smarter than him. In that video I had mentioned that I had put out where I talked about my entire business building process, I touched on finding help in your business. And by finding help, I mean you find somebody who can help you build your business. I myself found a guy named John, and he is more well-versed than me in certain things. I would attribute a lot of the success of what I do becoming sort of a marketing type business, where it's not just specifically I take photos and make videos. I would attribute it to John, because he kind of took a natural shining to that, and he was actually teaching me a lot of things about that world, about using Canva, for example. He discovered Canva years ago, about blogging, about geotagging images when you put them online for clients. So along with having a concrete plan for yourself, really try to think about how you could involve other people in the work that you do to make what you do even stronger and more valuable for people that you want to be working with. Chapter 8 is decision. The mastery of procrastination, which ails many of us. Keep your own counsel. When you begin to put into practice the principles described here by reaching your own decisions and following them. Close friends and relatives, while not meaning to, often handicap one through opinions, and sometimes through ridicule, which is meant to be humorous. Thousands of men and women carry inferiority complexes with them all through life because some well-meaning but ignorant person destroyed their confidence through opinions or ridicule. I hope this doesn't sound familiar for you, but it might. It certainly was the case in my life with my family. My father's side was always more blue collar, and while I was a very blue collar person myself, I like to get my hands dirty. I like construction and building and working on cars and fixing things. I like that. I was also the outcast who went to university for art, of all things. That was not very well received by my family. I still speak to most of them, but I've decided to not speak to them about abstract plans that they will have a bad opinion on. That being, I talked to nobody about building what I've built, and I still try my best to keep it to myself for the most part. Even with John, a lot of the time, the guy who's helping me out, I tell him certain things, but there are a lot of things where they're in motion and you're just starting to get the ball rolling. And if you start to say it out loud, a number of things will happen. First of all, your subconscious knows no difference between doing it and not doing it. If you talk about something and think about it, the recesses of your mind think you already accomplished that thing, so it crosses it off the list. Check mark, done. And then you wonder why you procrastinate. You wonder why you aren't doing that thing. It could perhaps be because you've been speaking about it, especially to the wrong people. There are appropriate people to talk about plans with, especially in personal life stuff. If you're married or you have a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, there's things you have to talk about. Maybe you're entering a new living situation, or something with your pet or like a kid. Like, you have to communicate for sure. But for stuff that comes from deep inside of you, from your imagination, those are the things that you need to let brew inside of you and start discussing them as you move through them and actually do them. But that comes from decision, meaning You need to narrow down all of the things that you like and commit to one certain specific direction and go all in on it. And creatives have a really hard time doing that because generally a creative person is multi-talented. You know, maybe you know a musical instrument, maybe you're great at painting or drawing, maybe you're great at photo and video, maybe you can sing, maybe you can build things and design things. You have to pick one. And then you have to go after it pretty intensely. But that requires deciding. And through making a decision, you're simply removing the possibilities of all these other things. And if it doesn't work out, you can just do one of the other things you're crazy talented at. But you can't try to do 4 or 5 creative endeavors all at the exact same time because, you know, say there's 4 of them, you're only giving 25% of your effort career-wise to each one of those. Whereas if you decide, I want to be a videographer and I want to help small businesses make more money, just for an example, then you can give 100% of your energy to doing that and you will likely be very successful in doing it. Okay, chapter 9 is persistence. This one's important. I think it's possibly the most important chapter in this book. And I mean, you could make an entire video just on this topic alone. It is not easy to be persistent. It's not. It's extremely challenging. Fortunes gravitate to men whose minds have been prepared to attract them, just as surely as water gravitates to the ocean. In this book may be found all of the stimuli necessary to attune any normal mind to the vibrations which will attract the object of one's desires. So this again ties back to those initial chapters, chapter 1 and chapter 2, especially the desire, even chapter 3, it touches back on the idea of deciding what you want and being persistent until you receive it, which can be an extremely scary thing. We are living in an age of infinite possibilities. It's infinite. You can have whatever you want and you can do whatever you want, way more than ever before. To even have a videography business 10, 15, or maybe even 20 years ago would have been extremely challenging. I mean, the tools that we have now are amazing. And because we have them, we can make photos and videos, and we can make packages out of those photos and videos, and we can sell them to people. Sorry, I got lost in thought. If you're spending a lot of your time consuming things on the internet, then you're going to have a hard time being persistent. And I think that's why this book is so potent in the 21st century. It was written almost 100 years ago, yet it's so timeless and so evergreen that you can pick it up today and look at it through the lens that we see things through now, which is the lens of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, on and on and on. And what this book really does is it inspires you to want to protect your imagination and protect your state of mind. Because if you start doom scrolling through Instagram and you start to see a variety from 10 different niches of people who are doing entirely unrelated things to each other, but you're interested in all of them, then you are going to get confused, you're going to get depressed, and you're going to have a hard time pushing forward towards the thing that you want to do. And even if your algorithm has picked up on the fact that you're only interested in one specific thing, you're still going to have a hard time being persistent because you just can't focus. And if you can't focus, especially on what you want, for more than like 3 minutes, then it's going to take an extremely long time to attain the things that you want to attain. Which again is a great segue into chapter 10. Chapter 10, which is power of the mastermind. This is a cool thing, the mastermind. Power may be defined as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. Power, as the term is used here, refers to organized effort sufficient to enable an individual to transmute desire into its monetary equivalent. Organized effort is produced through the coordination of effort of two or more people who work toward a definite end in a spirit of harmony. A mastermind is simply, your crew, your group of people that you resonate with, that you socialize with. It doesn't have to be just within what you do professionally. It can be, and that's good, but it can be any group of people who share a common goal and talk about things that get them excited. So, I mean, you as a freelancer, you are an entrepreneur. So if you work with small business owners, you essentially have a pretty good collection of a mastermind with these people. So take advantage of that. Have conversations with those people about your struggles, their struggles, about your goals and their goals. Brainstorm with each other about how to move through challenges that you face and how to really make the things that you both want as self-employed entrepreneurial people to be real. If you can get yourself in with a collection of people who are specifically in your realm of expertise, like photographers or videographers, then that's an extremely amazing thing. I was very lucky when I was working with a guy who taught me a lot in 2019 to work out of his studio and to be collaborating with 5, 6 very talented photographers back then. Some of them I still talk to, but during that time of growing and evolving and learning how to do what I was doing, It was amazing to bounce ideas off of each other, share techniques, look at our edits together. Even then in the video realm, it evolved even further into that point. There was one guy who was building at the same time as me, and we would send each other our video edits, and we kind of critique each other and chat about what we're doing, and it keeps you on a good track. If that's impossible and you live very remote, you can do this online, of course, and that's of course something that this book doesn't touch on because the internet didn't exist when it was written. But it's really cool how you can take everything that Napoleon Hill wrote and you can apply it to what's going on in the world today. Chapter 11 is the mystery of sex transmutation. The human mind responds to stimulation. Among the greatest and most powerful of these stimuli is the urge of sex. When harnessed and transmuted, this driving force is capable of lifting men into that higher sphere of thought which enables them to master the sources of worry and petty annoyance which upset their pathway on the lower plane. Depending on how old you are, you either have sex on your brain all the time or less and less. What this chapter is discussing is the idea that people who are, as Napoleon Hill calls it, highly sexed, meaning, I guess, throughout your lifetime you had sex a lot. Those people are extremely accomplished. He found some sort of connection between that with a massive list of people. George Washington, Napoleon, Shakespeare, Abraham Lincoln, Emerson, Robert Burns, Andrew Jackson, Thomas Jefferson, etc., etc., etc. I don't know where he found that that information, but he's making the claim. But that's not the important part, is like the sex itself. The important part is this concept of sexual energy, and that desire and that need for that thing can be transmuted into positive forward action. Because as you get out of your late teens and then your mid-20s and you sort of get towards your 30s, more and more responsibilities arise, life gets more real. You realize, like, well, I can't just chase girls or guys all the time. I guess I should do other stuff. That's just a reality of life. But the cool thing is that same energy that you have, you take that and you put it into your thing that you're doing. You put that love, that passion into your life that has nothing to do with sex. It's kind of an interesting concept. I had never come across that before or thought about it before I read this book. Chapter 12 is the subconscious mind, which I briefly touched on in my own words a little bit earlier on. The subconscious mind consists of a field of consciousness in which every impulse of thought that reaches the objective mind through any of the five senses is classified and recorded, and from which thoughts may be recalled or withdrawn as letters may be taken from a filing cabinet. You cannot entirely control your subconscious mind, but you can voluntarily hand over to it any plan, desire, or purpose which you wish transformed into concrete form. Read again the instructions for using the subconscious mind in the chapter on autosuggestion. So, like I said, I had touched on this in that chapter. This chapter goes it's a very short one, but it just goes a little bit more in depth on how to use your subconscious mind effectively. Inside of your subconscious mind is all of the stuff that has ever happened to you. It doesn't forget. I have made another video on this where I talk a little bit more in depth about the subconscious mind. It takes in and processes something like 11 million bits of information every single second, and your conscious mind only can work through 50 of those 11 million. So, you know, as I'm sitting here or standing here and I'm speaking to you, I can see that something is kind of red in my peripheral, and there's like a little red case over there, but I'm not thinking about it unless I choose to consciously think about it. But my subconscious is absorbing it. It knows that it's there. And that's actually a really exciting realization to have, because when you do that kind of just puts the icing on the cake for this entire book. The book is called Think and Grow Rich. So basically, by thinking about being wealthy and successful, and whatever your version of wealth is, that's what it is. That's extremely subjective, but let's call it just by being successful, being your ideal version of whatever you want to accomplish. Just by thinking about that and living in it, enjoying the process still. Don't get lost in thoughts so that you're daydreaming when you should be focusing on a conversation, because the conversation is a very real part of that success that you're building. But by just feeding your subconscious good with your conscious thoughts, then it's just going to continue to spit good back out. The problem is that we can get caught in this loop, and sometimes this is from our childhood, where, you know, we had coping mechanisms we had to develop because maybe we were around an abusive situation, or anything that could be stuck in there that's just been there for a long time. What tends to happen is if you keep living in that loop, like if you're in an uncomfortable, awkward situation with somebody, say it's an argument, and you have this habit, it feels like, of being reactive and getting defensive, that's a subconscious thing. You know, that is embedded deep in your mind, and when your mind is seeing something similar to a situation where that was initially injected into your mind, it's gonna spit it back out. But you can get rid of it. You know, it's like say you have one cup, and you have a bottle of water and a bottle of Coke, and say the Coke is the bad, you know, the stuff you don't want. Say you fill that cup up with Coke, and then, you know, you decide I'm really dehydrated and this Coke is making me feel like crap. I think I just want some water now. And you start dumping water into that cup. If you keep dumping that water infinitely, then it will just become 100% water, because the Coke in the water is all gonna overflow over the sides of that cup, and it will just 100% become water. But if you keep dropping Coke in while you're dropping water in, it's just gonna be a mismatch of both, and it's gonna taste like crap, you know? So brainwash yourself into just being cool. You know, it's all good. Chapter 13 is the brain. Not the one from that movie, Waiting. Common misconception. Vibrations of an exceedingly high rate are the only vibrations picked up and carried by the ether from one brain to another. Thought is energy traveling at an exceedingly high rate of vibration. Thought, which has been modified or stepped up by any way of major emotion, vibrates at a much higher rate than ordinary thought. And it is this type of thought which passes from one brain to another through the broadcasting machinery of the human brain. Try not to get hung up on thinking that's out there. It simply means that people can feel what you're thinking. Like it doesn't mean that he's not talking about telepathy, or even though I know like the CIA or something did experiments on that in the 60s or something. He's mostly referring to the fact that, you know, say you're in a sales meeting and you're trying to pitch a potential client on doing a video project with them. They know what your intentions are, and you don't have to say anything. It's just they can read your mind. Like that's where that saying comes from. Like it's like you could read my mind. Like they can. Like your brain is putting that out there. Your energy, everything is putting it out there, which makes it important to understand that like your brain needs to be full of good intentions. You know, why do you want to work with this client? If you have it in your brain like yeah, like I just gotta get this sale, and like I'm really gonna screw this guy over. I'm gonna get another like $5,000 for this. If you're thinking about that endlessly and like that's your game you're playing, like a used car salesman, then like you're gonna project that. But if your intentions are, I just love shooting this kind of stuff and this is what my time is worth, I think we work well together. Like just be honest, you know, with yourself first. And then you can be honest outside of yourself. I think we got a couple more chapters here. We're almost at the end. Chapter 14, the sixth sense. Not the movie. Also another common misconception. After you have mastered the principles described in this book, you will be prepared to accept as truth a statement which may otherwise be incredible to you. Namely, through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them, and notified of opportunities in time to embrace them. This basically is just touching on your gut. You know, a hunch, following your heart. If you're getting a feeling about something, it's probably legit. And if anything, I think this book really has taught me a lot about embracing that, embracing being kind of weird, you know, and being kind of abstract in thought, and taking a different path than most people take. Really embracing that sixth sense, or that the hunches you get, or your gut, that's only going to lead you down really, really great paths that you're going to look back on and you're going to be glad that you did it. Even if you trust your gut and then something bad happens. Bad things are good, and good just is. You know, if everything's all good, it's all good. But if something gets bad, something good always comes out of it, you know? This is the last chapter, which I think he summarizes everything really nicely. And he actually makes this exist almost in like a loop, because the way he ends it is on almost something kind of negative. It's called How to Outwit the 6 Ghosts of Fear. Apparently there's 6 ghosts of fear. I don't know if he invented them or if somebody else did. Before you can put any portion of this philosophy into successful use, your mind must be prepared to receive it. The preparation is not difficult. It begins with study, analysis, and understanding of 3 enemies which you shall have to clear out. These are indecision, doubt, and fear. So they're indecision, doubt, and fear. If you have any one of those things still within you as you're trying to accomplish things or move forward or do something important, then you're not going to be able to do it, because you don't believe that you can do it, because you're scared of rejection, or you're scared of what your family thinks, or what your friends think, or what the world thinks, or you can't decide. If you have like 4 or 5 options of things you can do, and you're just kind of thinking about them and kind of doing a little bit on every single one of those things, then you won't be successful. And if you doubt yourself, if you start thinking about, you want to jump in and do it, but then you start to hesitate and back up a little bit, you doubt yourself. So you have to move through these things before you can fully meet your potential. So like he mentions, there are 6 basic fears, with some combination of which every human suffers at one time or another. Most people are fortunate if they do not suffer from the entire 6. So these are in order of their most common appearance. Number 1 is the fear of poverty. The fear of criticism is number 2. Number 3, the fear of ill health. Number 4, the fear of loss of love of someone. Number 5, the fear of old age. And number 6, the fear of death. So, this is all a really nice bow on Napoleon Hill wanting to just hit home that you can't have positive and negative living within you at the same time, because there's just going to be a storm inside of you unless you completely remove all of the negativity, the fear, the doubt, the worry, the indecision. Unless you can successfully do that, there's just going to be a storm inside of you. And it's challenging to do, but again, what one man can do, another can do. Like you can do whatever you want. You just have to think about it all the time, right? Just constantly think about it. Mind control is the result of self-discipline and habit. You either control your mind or it controls you. There is no halfway compromise. The most practical of all methods for controlling the mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose, backed by a definite plan. Study the record of any man who achieves noteworthy success, and you will observe that he has control over his own mind. Moreover, that he exercises that control and directs it towards the attainment of definite objectives. Without this control, success is not possible. This entire book teaches you how to control your own mind. It teaches you how to brainwash yourself into attaining the things that you honestly know that you want. Because you start listening to yourself, you start writing out what you want, and you'll likely be surprised when you go through all of these steps, especially the one where you write out that number that you want, and then you write out your plan on how you're going to get it. And I mean, when you break it down, it's not even that complicated. Say you want to make $100,000 your first year as a video company owner, and maybe this is second company or a second year going into third. It depends on how educated you can get, like self-educated, and how optimistic you can remain. But you can do it. And I mean, to break it down, maybe you have to get 4 projects per month at $2,500 each. And then once you've broken it down to that point, you can decide, well, I guess I just have to learn how to sell video packages to people. So once you've gone through those 2 things, you want at least $100,000. Okay, I gotta do $2,500 per project 4 times a month. Okay, I have to figure out how I can do that. So then maybe you start going online and you start looking at courses, or you start looking at people who in the industry who seem like they are doing it, and then you can just ask them, like, hey, how do you do that? Maybe they'll tell you, you know. But you're not going to get to that point unless you start asking yourself these questions and writing down what you want. The master key is intangible, but it is powerful. It is the privilege of creating in your own mind a burning desire for a definite form of riches. There is no penalty for the use of the key, but there is a price you must pay if you do not use it. The price is failure. There is a reward of stupendous proportions if you put the key to use. It is the satisfaction that comes to all who conquer self and force life to pay whatever is asked. Finn, that's it. He ends extremely strong, and it makes you want to search for more information. Basically, it makes you want to find another great book to read that can top something like this. I don't know that there is anything that's better than this book in terms of like a step-by-step self-motivating book, because that really is what being successful in your business comes down to, is can you motivate yourself every single day to get up in the morning and do the work, because that is really what it comes down to. This book teaches you how to do that, and I thank you very much for watching. See ya.